Thank you very much for giving us your time today to speak about your visit. I'm really excited to find out a little bit about your reasonings for coming here. Can you firstly tell us, have you visited the Falklands before? What's your reason for coming down?
Yeah, so no, we haven't visited the Falklands before. I'm absolutely delighted to have made it. We have been trying to get here since spring 2020, Northern Hemisphere spring. Obviously, all bets were off for a planned visit. We had a planned visit sometime between January and June of 2020, which obviously didn't happen because of the pandemic. My main reason for wanting to come is obviously I'm the ambassador in Uruguay, and we do a lot of work with the Uruguayans to help keep the channels of communication open with the Falkland Islands. My team work tirelessly to make sure that the medical evacuations and the compassionate flights that the islands need to arrive in Uruguay or to transit Uruguay take place. And obviously there are supply chains that go through the Port of Montevideo. The Port of Montevideo also manages partly the fishing fleet that operates in Falklands waters. So actually there's quite a lot to do. As His Majesty's Ambassador to Uruguay, there's actually quite a lot to do with the Falkland Islands. And as I'd never been, I really wanted to come and meet in person, a number of the people that we work with regularly through my embassy. And also, frankly, take advantage of that. We came a little bit longer than was planned. I thought if we're going to make the trip all this way, I'll bring my husband, I'll bring my children as well, and really enjoy some of the things that the islands have to offer. And that's been marvellous.
Fantastic, and really happy. I'm glad that you've obviously had the experience here and to enjoy all that the Falklands has to offer. Can you tell us a little bit in sort of your observations, some of the similarities that you found between the two nations and perhaps possible areas for mutual cooperation in the future?
I think everybody knows that traditionally there's been long-standing ties between Uruguay and the Falklands on agriculture, for example. So I think that obviously that's something that we looks back into the past, with Samuel Lafone coming here and helping set up some of the agricultural industry. But looking forward, it means there are quite a lot of similarities in terms of 21st century challenges that are being faced. So a lot of work is going on in Uruguay at the moment about the quality of soil. How do you look at climate change? How do you look at sort of carbon sequestration in the soil? How do you manage your agricultural sector to move perhaps beyond land-based agriculture to take in more sea-based opportunities? The Falklands already done some of that, so you've moved a lot from a heavily sort of animal husbandry economy into one that does a lot more fishing. I think I'd love to see Uruguay go in that direction. There are lots of opportunities for them there, so I see great opportunities for collaboration there. And also some of the piece that you're both looking at in terms of how do you increase your agricultural productivity whilst actually increasing your respect for the environment, whilst trying to be as sustainable as possible, whilst trying to respect as much as possible animal welfare. For example, I was delighted to hear that the Falklands were now adopting the responsible wool standard using Uruguayan certification. But I think there's loads more in that vein that both entities could be doing together as we sort of try to work out how we're going to deal with the food supply for the world without completely ruining the planet.
We spoke to some of the parliamentarians from Uruguay this morning, and one thing that was highlighted quite clearly was the respect that they have for Falklands' right to self-determination. Can you tell me how that could be built upon and strengthened sort of in the years to come as well?
So I think it's a really good question. I mean, I think I'm not alone in saying all of us, including many in the region, would love to see a slightly more beneficial, mutually beneficial relationship between the Falkland Islands and all of its neighbours. I think perhaps the politics are not quite where we would like them to be on that yet. But I do think, we do see that Uruguay has had a long-standing history and tradition of relationships with the Falklands where it's mutually beneficial for both sides. That has tended to be on commerce, but it also has been people-to-people ties as well. For example, cultural exchanges, education exchanges. So it's my job really as ambassador to Uruguay to make sure that we maintain those links and that we keep the dialogue and the paths for dialogue open so that hopefully, we emerge into a better place politically in future.
Thank you. And finally, will you be coming back to the Falklands?
Absolutely. If they would let me, I would stay longer this time. So we've had a wonderful time and we've managed to visit some really great places like Volunteer Point, Sea Lion Island, we've driven around the M25 as they call it, we've been to Goose Green, we've been to Gypsy Cove and Bertha's Beach, but I haven't even got to Western Falklands yet. So there's still so much more to see. And I really do feel that understanding a place, it's great to spend some substantial time in Stanley, and we have done, but I really think to understand a place you also need to get out and about. And Uruguay as well, it has this, it has a very different atmosphere in its rural areas and in the corners of the country than it does in its capital city, and I think that's absolutely true of the Falklands. So again, I'd love to come back again and explore a few more of the corners.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you today.
No, thank you. My pleasure is all mine.